Welcome, everybody. Episode 73 of Christian Geeks Rockcast. And I'm Steve Chalk. And on the other end, we have best-selling Christian author.
There you go. Mr.
Britt Mooney.
Awesome. How you doing, man?
I'm good. It's like the downhill slide to Christmas. We're recording this like just a few days before Christmas. So it's, I don't have little kids anymore. So it's not all of that, but it's still a lot.
Oh, sure. Well, for us, it's busy for a lot of the same reasons. You know, as most of you know, for both Steve and myself, our wives are in education. So, you know, it's kind of crazy end of the year stuff. And I have two still in high school, and Steve has one. And my daughter, her birthday was Tuesday. So she's having her birthday party tomorrow. So we're going to do a birthday party on the 21st. And then Sunday, we got family in town. We're going to go out and do some stuff with them. But then like Tuesday is Christmas Eve. I mean, it's just crazy, man. It's a crazy sort of turnaround this year. And of course, Becca is bemoaning the fact because, as I'm maybe Jill is too, because the whole break is shorter this time. And as far as how many school days they get off this time. So, you know.
Yeah. And Jill has to even go back a day earlier than that.
Yeah.
So it's crazy. I mean, I remember when I was in school, it's like we would get off around the 17th or 18th of December, and we'd be off until after New Year's. So we had a good full 2 weeks, maybe even pushing 2.5 weeks. But then we also didn't have fall break.
Oh, I know. Yeah.
Winter break.
Yeah.
We had a lot less sort of school holidays.
Generally those other breaks that they're putting in, they're taking from the summer. They've kept this year is different. I mean, over the past few years, it's been a good long couple weeks, but this year it's a little different. Just because of where Christmas falls, you know, it's not like on a Saturday or whatever. It's just, you know, just kind of how the calendar worked out this year. But anyway, we're doing well. We have a special Christmas episode today. We're going to talk about Adam again, Homeboys, which is very Christmassy. It's very uplifting. It's very joyful. It has a lot of very positive messages about.
I like to call it
living.
Ho ho Homeboys.
Yes. So maybe next year for Christmas, we can do James Brown's Christmas in the Ghetto album. That would be fun. No.
Or Run DMC. It's Christmas time in Hollis, Queens.
That's right. No, so we decided not to do a Christmas thing this year, but we have a couple that you can go back and listen to if you are so inclined. And some good episodes, I think.
Yeah, we did the Pachyderm Christmas Hymns album a couple of years ago. Last year we did the Bruce Coburn Christmas album, which is one of my favorites of all time. And that, I mean, realistically, like if I'm looking at statistics, that was one of probably our least streamed episodes. But I kind of get it because it's, you know, themed around the holiday. Bruce Coburn is not maybe the widest known artist in this particular area, but it's a great album.
It's a great
so
album.
If you haven't listened to it and you want something very Christmassy besides just the Christmas gift of Britt and I talking to you,
exactly.
Go back and listen to that one. It's really, really good. I love that album.
Yeah, it's a good album.
So we got, like Britt said, we're talking about Homeboys by Adam again. We did Dig about 50 episodes ago, I think.
It was one of the first ones, wasn't it?
It was early on. But it made an appearance on our top 3 albums.
Yep.
Episode 1. And Dig is just an amazing, amazing album. But Homeboys is, you know, it's like the one thing I was recognizing as I was listening to this album, preparing for this episode, is if Dig had never come out, I think that we would look at Homeboys as one of the greatest we'll put air quotes around Christian rock albums of all time. I think Dig just overshadowed it in a lot of ways.
Yeah, I mean, definitely when you got onto Homeboys, Eugene had kind of figured his style out, at least for a couple albums. And as we'll get into it, in this album, he really figures out a style that he likes and works within it and finds kind of his way in it. And then I think he perfects it with Dig. You're right. Without Dig, we would have said this is a great album. But then when you it's like this was an A album, and then Dig was like an A++++ album. AP add 10 points. Just he just perfected it, and it could be because he had all the same musicians, he had the style, he had figured it out. And but anyway, but you're right. It does overshadow Homeboys, but it can be something of it can be a little sad just because Homeboys is amazing.
Absolutely. Yeah, that to me is like, because I do listen to Dig more, just admittedly. But Homeboys is one of those, when I put it on and I listen to it, I'm like, there's so much genius on this record. And it was 10 Songs was a fantastic album too, but like this just took a huge step forward. And then Dig took a huge step forward after that. I mean, it's just, I don't know. I have a lot to say about those guys.
Just for me, I'm not as into the alternative scene, but I liked a lot of it. And for me, listening back, as we all do, at least as Steve and I we do, as when we get into these albums, we don't just listen to the album. It's like, listen to Dig, and I listen to this one. And it's to me, this is just my take. The first Adam Again's first couple albums were a little more experimental in my view. They were a little more like he was experimenting with styles and sounds and different things, and it was cool. But man, I just like listening back through these albums. And again, some of this is just my personal style and what I like, and we'll get into that when we get into some of the songs. But for me, it was like, no, this was a creative expression that was consistent. I don't know if that makes sense. It wasn't just let's play around with this sound. Oh, let's do this. It's it was a little more consistent and cohesive. Although not all the songs sound alike. I'm not saying that. It's good, and it's so unique. Like I said, we'll get into it, but
yeah. For sure. Well, first, before we get into that and before we get into news, I was wondering if you have any strong opinions on Christmas songs. Are there any Christmas songs that you have a very strong opinion about, Britt?
Well, I was gonna bring this up during the news. We were going over what we should talk about, what we should do as an episode, because we had time to do one. And I said we should do an episode. I don't know whether we could have done a whole episode on why. What's the name of the song? What's the name of it?
Is it Do They Know It's Christmas?
Do They Know It's Christmas? By various artists, because after Live Aid or whatever, We Are the World, after the We Are the World was a huge hit, like other people started to do this stuff. And there's some really funny ones out there. Like there's a metal one. I don't know if people have seen some of these. They're like, they tried to raise money by trying to get all these stars together and sing a song and try to raise money.
Oh, and it's rough. That one's rough.
You remember the metal one? It's rough.
Oh yeah. It was like all like Norwegian metal or like Swedish metal. It was funny. Yeah,
and then of course they had some American hair metal guys in it. But anyway, so they did one for Christmas and they know it's Christmas song. And I remember when it came out and you're like, oh, okay. But like the more you look at the lyrics, and by the way, the lyrics for We Are the World are kind of messed up too, just to put that out there. But the lyrics for Do They Know It's Christmas? It's like you get through the first half of it and you're like, this is awful. This is horrible. Like this, like if I were going to church and they tried to guilt trip me like that, I would leave. I would be like, this is not what we should be about. And I know what they were trying to do. And then, of course, I expressed this kind of half joking to Steve. And then he sent me the guy who does like a dramatic reading of song lyrics, which is kind of,
he was the one who inspired me to do the Shout Find a Way that I did.
Right.
If you haven't seen that, by the way, go back. It's incredible.
It is incredible. I agree. And so then I had never seen it. So he sends that to me and oh my gosh, I laughed so hard. So yes.
Well, he's dressed as Santa and he's dressed as Santa, and then he just sort of like tries to lay the guilt trip on you. It's like, tonight, thank God it's them
instead
of you. I don't know. The whole thing is just it's almost like I think their heart was in the right place.
Yes.
But and granted, this was 39 years. This is 1984 when this song came out. But it's just kind of like, the Christmas bells that ring there are the clanging chimes of doom.
I
don't know, just like the whole
and from my perspective, looking back on it now, I'm like, you've got Bono. Bono was a part of it. I think Sting was a part of it. There was major 80s pop rock stars. So, yeah.
Yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot.
It's a lot.
But like I
it
said,
is what it is.
They raised it. That was a huge song back then.
Oh, it was a huge song. And so also, and I was talking with my kids about this and they didn't know, maybe it's just more people our age, but there's this thing on social media where people kind of play in this game where you see how long you can last without hearing Last Christmas by Wham. Have you seen these videos where people like accidentally and they lose? They're like, I lost. And so
I think it's Whamageddon. Is that it?
Is it Whamageddon?
It's called Whamageddon.
I mean, I actually kind of like that song. It is cheesy as all get out, but look, you can take one of my metal cards, but I think George Michael was an incredibly talented human being. So there, I said it. Hot take.
Wow, hot take. That is a hot take for this last episode of 2024. With the completion of 2024, this is like the end of like our 4th year of doing the podcast.
I know.
4 years.
Cheers, man. Cheers. All right, let's get into news.
All right. I don't have a lot of news. I'm just going to put it out there because number one, I've been very busy, so I haven't been able to compile a lot of stuff. But what I do have, there's a couple of people that are that I've posted about recently who are kind of in the world that we live in, the Christian music world, that are in need of prayer. One of which is Steve Whitaker from Barren Cross, who apparently has ALS and is, dealing with that and has decided to retire from drums and all that stuff. And the picture that they shared was, him in a motorized wheelchair. So I didn't know any of that was going on. Yeah, so definitely keep him and his family in your prayers. And then today, the day that we're recording this, Dave Lenhart from the 77s was undergoing, I think, brain surgery.
Heart
surgery, open heart surgery.
Heart.
That's what it was. The brains, I'm getting that mixed up with Oz Fox.
That's Oz Fox.
Yeah. So open heart surgery this morning. So,
man,
it's probably over by this point because that was started about, several hours ago, but yeah, just keep him in your prayers as he recovers from that. And he's a good dude. I've run across him several times over the years because he lives here in the Atlanta area. So we see him out and about. But yeah, so lots going on in that area, but always keep people in your prayers as far as that goes. Hang on one second. You can cut this. Somebody's at the door. So I've got a review. We talked about it last episode. We haven't had too many reviews on Apple Podcast, Spotify, and that sort of thing. But so this was from Spike Chiquette. I don't know who that is, but thank you for listening. 5 stars. It says, as a Christian rock radio DJ that started in 1992, these chats are totally in my wheelhouse. Keep up the great work.
Nice.
So thank you, Spike. We appreciate that.
1 star, 2 stars. What did he give? 5. Good.
5 stars. So thank you, Spike. We appreciate that. I did a little deeper dive on some of our statistics and analytics and stuff, and we specifically with Spotify. But things. I mean, it's like our audience grew like 50% this year, 48%. As far as subscribers go, I mean, we
went from like 2 to 3.
No, it was a little more than that.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
Maybe 200 to 300. I don't know. But, we're like in the top 10 for about almost 150 people. So that's why I wanted to get, and I got a request from one of our listeners to have people post their Spotify Wrapped and kind of talk about like who their favorite podcasts were and that sort of thing.
Yeah, that was really cool.
A few days ago, it was great to see people who jumped in and gave it. And some people said we don't use Spotify, but those people I know listen, so I'm sure that we're at least in the top 5 for those guys. But it's it's really cool. I mean, we don't do this necessarily for the statistics or the analytics, but I think if we saw them and there were like 3 people listening, we might be like, maybe let's not record today. But the fact that we know there's hundreds of you out there that are listening every episode, it warms the cockles of my heart.
Well, and this, we've talked about this before, but we've met great people doing it. So, and very supportive and very kind people. So yeah, we enjoy it.
Yeah,
absolutely.
We made some really, really good friends over the years doing this, and I'm sure we'll make many more, and we'll continue to try to keep this going as long as the good Lord allows us to do it.
That's right.
But that's my news. I had that nice review by Spike, and I wanted to get that out there.
So did you didn't happen to check out the live online performance by Sixpence, did you? Because I was like Tuesday night. It was like I almost did it, but we were busy that evening. But it was like $6. It was $6, and you could watch them online. And Roy Orbison, $6 for Sixpence, and Roy Orbison was a part of it.
Yeah, I saw that post. That was a Britt post. Britt every now and then jumps into social and makes a post.
And every now and then I accidentally post to Christian Geeks because I'm posting on a ministry thing and I hit the wrong button. I have to go back and delete.
Well, let's just say that the work accounts that I have access to have a lot of potential exposure. Like I have to be very careful whenever I choose which account to post to, because if I choose the wrong one, it could go to like 1.5 million people. And I try to not do that because those 1.5 million people would have no clue who like Adam again was, or they would wonder. Man, it's to be very cautious.
I didn't know Charles Stanley was that big into the 77s. I didn't realize that.
You know what? I'm sure that Mike Rowe would probably love it if I accidentally did that and just left it there. But I also I really like my job.
Right. Yeah.
I would prefer to keep it. Although I probably told you that. I don't know if I've told you this story. I hesitate to admit this to a broader audience. But one time, very early on, when I was working at the ministry, and there was a time when Facebook made it more challenging to distinguish how you were posting.
Yes.
And what page or what account you were posting to. And so I was at the homecoming dance for the high school where our wives work. And I took a picture of like the courtyard out there by the commons and they were out there, kids were out there, milling around and drinking punch or whatever. And so I took a photo out there and posted it. And unbeknownst to me, I posted it to our ministry Facebook account. And before I noticed it, which was maybe like an hour later, it had a couple of hundred likes, a few comments like, "Oh, it looks beautiful."
Charles Stanley's
so much.
At a party. At least it wasn't like a selfie with you and Jill, and you were like, "I get to go make out with this hottie later" or something. Like that would have been
fun. No, I think I probably would have gotten a call a lot earlier on that one, because it was that was the only time in 13 years I've ever done that, but which is good. That's I figured once
it's easier now to get it right, and I still mess it up. So there you go.
Yeah, you have to really not be paying attention to do it wrong now, but
exactly.
You know what? I've been known to not pay attention.
That's right.
But here we are. So that's all the news I got. I mean, we're wrapping up another year. We haven't posted quite as much podcast content this year, but the numbers are still really good. You guys have been very, very faithful throughout the year, listening and downloading, and our audience, I think, has grown a good bit this year. And, even with the sort of inconsistent podcast release schedule we've had, which I don't know. It's funny because I've thought about this. I think I know why some podcasts do seasons, because
right.
I've often wondered, like, why do they do a season? That seems kind of weird, because podcasting I like to look at podcasting kind of like as a radio show and some people are really good at it. Like, Joe Rogan, that's what he does. He makes loads of money. He schedules it out. He's got one every day. That's just his job. For us, it's, something we do when we have time, but we try to keep it fairly regular-ish, once a month, twice a month, as best we can. But there was a time during the fall when I was like, it would be nice to be like we had the end of the season, we had the summer,
off-season,
and then like we start back up in the new year. But then it's like, I don't think we need to do that at this point. We just kind of, during the fall, it's going to be a little more sporadic just because of how busy we are.
Yeah.
But, and then we'll kind of hit the ground running a little bit more when the winter hits. So,
yeah, I think we kept consistent enough to do pretty much one a month, which I'm okay with that.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'll tell you what, everybody expect one a month. You might get sometimes two or maybe three. I think it was like March. We had like 4 episodes in a month or something crazy.
Well, because it was like March 1st, and then we did a couple, and then yeah.
I think there was a special episode in there or whatever. Like I think the Mike Knott was in there.
Right.
But it's funny, if you look at our statistics for podcast downloads, March, we just went way up. And it's like, you look at it and go like, man, we're way down from March. And it's like, well, I can't keep up that pace.
No, yeah,
I'm sorry.
No.
But yeah, so that's news. Thanks everybody for another great year. We will keep going. And right now we'll maybe get into some Homeboys by Adam again.
Homeboy.
So
yes, sir.
I have the vinyl re-release, which may shock you. Do you have the vinyl, or do you?
I do not have the vinyl. I have this on. I have it on CD,
which is awesome.
Which is awesome, and to be honest, I had Dig, and then I got the next one, the one after Dig,
Perfecta.
Yeah, Perfecta. I wanted to say Mercury, but I knew that was the prayer chain because they keep posting about Mercury for some unknown reason. I guess it's like
30 years, baby.
30 years or whatever. And so then I was at a Christian bookstore and Homeboys was like on clearance or something. Like the CD was on clearance. And I said, I'm going to check this one out. So I did. And then I fell in love with it then.
Yeah, it's just, it's like, this is the one thing I've thought about during this. And I've read some people, there's one particular blog I read that just, it's called An Atheist's Guide to Christian Rock, which I thought was interesting. But my guess is as someone who deconstructed and that kind of thing.
Sure.
Because I don't know how you would get into Christian rock if you were an atheist at the time.
Right.
But he did a really, really great review of this album. But it kind of got me thinking a lot about categorization. That's the right word, right? Of music and kind of where this album particularly falls, and even Adam Again as a whole, because they kind of had their sort of funky electronic thing going for the first couple of albums. Then this album, they got John Knox, who is just unbelievably, I'll go into that in a few minutes, but such a great drummer and just fit this style and added so much to Adam Again. And they kind of, like you said, they sort of found their groove, their niche. But to me, I think calling it alternative rock is discounting it in some way. It lumps it in with bands that they don't really compare with, because really they're more like funk soul with some elements of rock, or kind of like a rock funk soul mix. And I don't even really know who to compare, because some of it sounds like Bill Withers or Marvin Gaye. Some of it sounds like, I don't even know, like Fishbone or something like that at times when they really get into the...
Those are all good examples, but yeah, you texted this to me, but there are no good comps to Adam Again, because it is a very unique blend of 70s-ish folk, soul, funk, and then he's got an REM-ish sort of vocal to it on top of it.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a completely unique mashup of these things, and yet it totally works. It totally works. And so, I don't think you can legitimately compare them to anybody or put them into any certain category. It kind of goes into that alternative because they hung out with those people and he produced those people, and his voice goes into that, again, like I said, the REM-ish sort of realm and the alternative rock realm, because that's where his voice fits, in my opinion. But then when you mix it with what they mix it with, it makes it completely unique. And his songwriting on this album, and then especially on Adam Again, just goes off the charts.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I don't know. It's if you listen to it and you just sort of strip away your expectations of what you're getting yourself into, and honestly, I mean, this whole podcast is about quote unquote Christian rock. That's why this podcast exists. But if you sort of strip away all of the baggage that comes along with Christian rock and just kind of look at this for what it is, it's like, I feel like it was, there was so much baggage placed onto it that it did not probably see as much success or find its audience the way it could have. Because, I mean, in my opinion, Adam Again could have been massive if they found the right audience.
Absolutely.
Not like Taylor Swift massive, but at least really like spoken of in circles of top 50 bands of all time or whatever, like somewhere in there, because Eugene's an absolute genius. And if you read this, read the lyrics, listen to the songs, how this album flows. You mentioned that earlier. Dig is this whole thing. You go back and listen to our episode on that. It's another whole thing. But even this album, it's like the way they kind of ease in and out of like funk rock into sort of just a Hammond, slow groove. I mean, it's just like, it's so well done.
Yeah, I totally agree. So this was 1990. So this is right before alternative rock was kind of getting more mainstream. It had some mainstream stuff in the 80s. This is their third album, kind of already said that. But they started in like 1982, and this was Broken Records, right? Was Dig on Broken Records too?
Yeah, because Gene and Ojo Taylor owned Broken Records.
Records. So Gene produced this, and you've got Riki Michele. She sings a little bit more on this one, which I appreciate. But you got all the same guys, basically the same band that's on Dig. Greg Lawless on the guitar, Paul Valdez on bass, John Knox on drums, and yeah, they just knocked it out of the park, in my opinion, on this album. And again, but it was unique enough for me to appreciate, and I am a huge fan. So one of the reasons why I like this album, and Adam again, Dig, is I'm a huge fan of that sort of funky rock that kind of came out of, and soul and stuff. And I'm a huge fan of Marvin Gaye. So doing a cover of Marvin Gaye to me was, I'm a fan. And I didn't even realize that was on this album, like I said, until I got the CD on clearance, and it started playing. I'm like, I know this song, because I got a CD set of the complete works of Marvin Gaye. Like, that's how much I love Marvin Gaye. So for me, no wonder I love these guys. And you kind of feel, and I think they went a little bit into more of a distinct style, I think, on Dig, but it was still there. I mean, this is kind of where they really get into it. It was good.
Yeah, agreed. And this album, well, just kind of going back, so Gene and Paul Valdez are both deceased now. They both passed away. Gene in 2000, Paul in 2013, which it seems like that was just like not that long ago, but it's been 11 years now. But yeah, so I mean, when Gene passed away, the band sort of went, just stopped. And Gene and Riki were.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
So Gene and Riki were married, Riki Michele, and they were married at this time. And then, as you get into Dig, their marriage was kind of falling apart. They still kept the band together, and they still, which I thought was, was really, really cool that they were able to do that. I know that there's a lot of music that came out of that breakup that is just heartbreaking.
Yeah.
And it's especially if you look at Perfecta, River on Fire.
Oh, River on Fire, yeah.
Yeah, so much, just incredible. I mean, so much really great music comes out of, tragedy and devastation. It's unfortunate. That's that way.
It was almost like a Fleetwood Mac, not quite, but it's almost like a Fleetwood Mac situation where they kept going, which I thought was interesting. So. Yeah.
It's, I mean, this album though got into some, I mean, they always were kind of, like Gene always had a perspective. If you go back, like Gene was sort of born in sort of an inner city environment. He was on Bewitched, which, when he was a kid, he was a child actor, which is interesting because that's a couple of two different child actors I know that are that were in the Christian rock scene.
Yeah.
But he was, I want to say he was the son of Darren and the witch.
Samantha.
I can't remember her name. Samantha. I think he was the son. I can't remember. But anyway, but he had little acting chops and that sort of thing. So that's just kind of a little tidbit, a little fun fact. But he grew up being friends and kind of hanging out in the streets with the
Homeboys,
in inner city,
the Homeboys,
and that's kind of what this album is a lot about. Is kind of his experience and that sort of thing.
That's a theme, absolutely.
Yeah, thus the name. But I want to read it. I wanted to read this from The Atheist Guide to Christian Rock because I thought it was very poignant the way he put it. Because he's talking about kind of like where this album fits and kind of the theme of it and everything, and sort of how it sort of fits, we'll say, in the greater Christian rock world. It says, this is quoting, "So it's jarring when Homeboys opens with a sharp swipe of guitar," because he's talking about how the first couple of albums sort of were an exploration more into electronic and, kind of how those first albums sounded. He said, "It's jarring when Homeboys opens with a sharp swipe of guitar as grainy and searing as a match striking sandpaper. Frontman Eugene, his birth name is Andrusco, but it was shelved before Adam Again's first record, quickly establishes setting. In the summertime, in the streets where I grew up, there were black guys, white boys, and Mexicans. That itemization is important. In the late 80s, Christian rock was a lot of things, but the one thing it was more than anything else was white. The worst of it plays like what it is: music without a knowledge of music history, made by privileged white people for privileged white people, living in the kind of houses only privileged white people can afford. In that context, there's a kind of defiance in Eugene's opening lines, as if he's saying, this record does not take place in your world, so either be quiet and listen or shut the door on your way out. Which, that's a very strong way of putting it, you know. And I mean,
I don't know if Gene Eugene, I don't know if Gene Eugene had that attitude, but he definitely had the artist attitude. Is I'm going to tell my experience, take it or leave it. I mean, not in a mean way, but yeah, absolutely.
Well, and owning your own record label and having the freedom to do what you want to do.
Sure. There you go.
You know, I think that probably led a lot to the genius behind What Is Adam Again, because I think their first record was not on, like, I think that was like a Blue Collar or one of those old Maranatha labels or something. I can't remember. But the subsequent, like, starting with 10 songs, I think was on Broken, and then pretty much everything else they released on Broken or BAI. So he had freedom to do basically what he wanted, and it was distributed by Word Records. So it was in all the bookstores and everything. So, yeah. I mean, good for him. I mean, it's like, it's a definite, and the album feels that way. Like, you feel the pain of the people he grew up with, the people, his friends who died. You feel all that stuff.
Yeah, for sure. All right. Artwork.
I love it. I think it's like,
I dig it.
I see what you did there. There was and I'm not sure like who the art director was for Adam Again or for Broken at the time, but this kind of falls, like, it's a lot in the same style as like Undercover, Balance of Power.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Like with, like, you know, torn paper, and, you know, this reminds me of Elam Hall, which, if you know Elam Hall, the thing on the back with the little half mask. But, you know, real texturized with photos and nails and, you know, all the things. But the one thing I didn't pick up on until I was reading that blog was, like, the picture, the photo is of a fence with a kind of bent, like a chain link fence bent and pulled open so you can sneak in somewhere or sneak out. And that's, if you go through the inner city, there's that everywhere.
Sure. Oh yeah.
And so it's kind of like, here, I'm going to break open this fence so you can come in and sort of get a feel for what it was like for me growing up.
Yeah, for sure.
So it's a little deeper than, you know, I've always said this. It's like at 18, 19, probably into my 20s, I didn't look very deeply at things. I've only in my old age have I started looking more deeply at things and understanding the sort of deeper meaning behind images and words and that sort of thing. So,
and Dream Theater albums.
I love it.
Oh no, sorry, that was different. All right, let's
pull me under.
Let's get into some songs. The first song is Homeboys.
Thus the name.
But when you get through this place, it's just a reception room. You hang your hat up, you pull your coat off in the lobby.
In the summertime, the street where I grew up, there was black guys and white boys and Mexicans, and we loved to make a football game, light post and light post. Here comes another car, get out of the way again. But we never miss a day, and we'd hardly miss a night. We'd talk about each other's sisters under the street lights. Didn't care about the world, didn't matter about nobody but the homeboys. The tiny and the strong, everybody knew that they belonged. The homeboys. Yeah.
It's just good. I mean, what else was there like it at the time? Or even now? There's nothing like it. And it's a little alternative rock. That's a little more rockish, but again, you've got sort of that, it's the sounds that he used, the guitar sounds, the wah, the funky sort of Fender, the 70s Rhodes piano. I mean, all that stuff, a lot of it was just the sounds that he used. And John, and the bass lines aren't really that complicated. They just got groove. And of course, when you got John Knox at the bottom of it, and if you really pay attention to John Knox's drum parts, they seem simple, but he's creating a groove, man. He's just creating a groove. And he can be flashy, but that's not what he was doing. So anyway, just amazing.
Yeah, I mean, and this kind of goes into like the whole album, just sort of like of the way the layers of sound, the guitars, the bass, the drums, the organ, the lyricon in some cases with Dan Michaels. I mean, it's just like the whole thing just sort of mixes into this beautiful work of art. And it's like, and sometimes if you just kind of like, if it's got it on the background, you're just like, yeah, it's fine. If you really listen to it, put on the headphones and listen to it. It's like, you can hear all the textures. It's so good. It's really incredible. And a couple of side notes, you were talking about John Knox, and I've mentioned this before, I think, on the podcast, but the one time I went to Cornerstone was 91, and which was between this album and Dig. So Dig wasn't out yet. And I saw them, it was late night, one night. And that concert was so, I guess, life-changing is probably not, that's probably overstating it, but it changed the way I looked at the band. It changed the way I looked at a lot of things, because I'd been to like Petra, Milo If Ever, all good shows for what they are. This was an experience. This was under a tent with a bunch of people sweating, dancing, and just completely in the groove. And John Knox I was just mesmerized by it, because he, like, in the pocket, he was just unmatched. I mean, I still to this day, I don't think I've seen a drummer at any show just killing it the way he killed it that night.
No,
unbelievable.
And it was the same way. I knew of Adam again, but then we went to every Christian rock show, and I shared this when we did Dig, because I saw them on the Dig tour, and that's when I fell in love with them, because you're right. The live show was an experience. We saw them here in Atlanta. And it was them and the choir, I believe. Maybe the Violet Burning I think it was all three of them. And, I wasn't super impressed with the other two personally, but Adam, again, I was just amazed. And my friends were just, whatever. I was like, did you not get what they just did on stage? Like, that was one of the best things I've ever seen in my life. And, so yeah, of course I had a lot of metalhead friends, and I would drag them out to shows, but yeah, it was just so good.
I equate that a little bit like I went and saw The Cure. I wasn't a huge Cure fan, but I went to that show and I was blown away by how good they were live. I mean, it's just like, because I
love The Cure. I thought The Cure was awesome. They were one of my favorites.
But that's how, like, kind of the same way you're talking about. It's like, you go to the show and you're like, I have a whole new appreciation for what these guys do.
It's so good.
But then Howard Finster at the beginning, the preacher from Somerville, Georgia, Paradise Garden. If you're ever up in Northwest Georgia, you got to go check it out, because it's still there. He's passed away several years ago, but he's the one who did the painting that's on the cover of In a New World of Time. He also did a painting for a Talking Heads cover. He's done a lot of stuff, but I actually got to see him one time. I was at a folk art show here in Atlanta back in the 90s. And he was there, and he was selling. I had no money, which really stinks, because I wish I'd have gotten some, because the stuff was pretty affordable. You could get an original Howard Finster, like, it was just a little thing, but like for $50. I didn't have $50, and kicking myself. But anyway, he was sitting there, and it's interesting, because John Lewis, one of
Senator
Dr. the Kings.
He's a senator or a congressman.
Anyway, I was standing right beside John Lewis, and awesome. It's kind of a whole thing. Yeah. But Howard's just sitting there preaching. He's just sitting there painting, preaching. Like, it was just, I don't know.
That's cool.
It was a cool experience.
All right. Next, The Fine Line.
What a funky tune. So good.
Everybody get in line. Blind leads blind. Everybody drop a dime to ease your mind. On a one, the weatherman say it's gonna be warm today. What I give for a little rain. What I mean is, here I sit, torch in hand, I live in a devil's land.
Devil in black, break your mama's back, feel like a maniac.
Sitting in a parking lot.
Yeah. So I don't know if I'm guessing here. It seems like the song's about drugs. I could be wrong. And the imagery is amazing. I love the bridge. And there's a really sort of odd guitar sound that I think Greg Lawless has that really no one else had. And it borders on annoying for me. It borders on that. Oh, okay, that could get annoying if you went just a step too far. But man, this is such a great little song, and I love Riki Michele. And during I love the bridge, like I said, and then there's a place towards the end where he says one time, two times, and that's totally James Brown. Like that's where he gets that from. That's where that comes from. Is hit me one time, hit me two times, you know. So again, he's calling back to those 70s soul funk sort of genres.
Yeah, it's interesting. This is another one of those songs that I never looked too deeply at to really get that it was about a drug deal. But, you know, when you read the lyrics under that context, it makes sense.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, there's so many little nuances to the song, how it starts out really slow with the organ. Then
Right.
you just get kicks in, it starts getting real funky. And then it's like, you know, that think of that part, that sort of, dun, 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 dun,
Yeah,
dun,
that's the
dun,
bridge
dun,
part.
dun,
I love that thing, man.
It's
That's
just
so
like,
good.
there's so many elements to the song that make it so unique.
Yeah.
And it's just, I love it. I mean, it's like, this song sounds really good, like turned way up.
Yes,
Just
it's so good.
for sure.
All right, Hideaway. This is a uplifting, happy song.
Do you hide away because I just won't feel you? Darling, I'm touching you now. I just don't know how to be near you. Baby, come close. Summer is winter.
That chord.
Flowers wither, stars fade. When you hide away, when you hide your eyes, love.
Yeah, that chord change in the chorus makes the song. I mean, the whole song has a great vibe and the lyrics are cool, but that chord change, it just screams longing, pain. It's genius.
Yeah. I mean, and I think he was so good at that sort of, I mean, it's like it feels like all of his albums, there's like these tortured songs on there.
Yeah, right. Sure.
And he's so good at writing music that encapsulates that feeling. Which is interesting. I don't think I knew this till I was reading the liner notes. This song, the lyrics to this song were written by Steve Hindalong from the Choir.
Oh, wow. I thought this was maybe the beginning of problems with with
Well,
Riki.
maybe he talked to Gene before he wrote it. I don't know. But yeah,
I did not know that.
And it's interesting because Save Me, which is a little bit later on, was written by Riki. And then Occam's Razor was by Terry Taylor.
Nice. So, yeah, Occam's Razor sounds like a Terry Taylor sort of lyric.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's funny because when I saw that, it made a lot of sense to me.
Yeah, for sure. I didn't know that. So there's a cello solo in this one that we didn't get to, but it's distorted, so it almost sounds guitarish. But it's a cello. It's a cello solo. But again, that's what made it unique. They weren't just directly copying 70s soul and funk. They weren't copying anything. They had this mashup of let's put this in there and do it in an alternative rock sort of way. And that's to me what makes a band great is if they just do what they love, because basically, that's what a band will do. A great band will say, like King's X. It's like, okay, well, we like Metallica, but we also like 70s funk, and we also like, singing like these guys, and they just kind of mash up this thing together and makes it unique. And Beatles-esque, you get a soulful singer with Beatles-esque background vocals, and it's different and it's new and it's and that's kind of what Adam again does that I love. So it's good.
Oh yeah.
All right. Are we ready for bad news on the radio?
Sure. Well, actually, no. I'm ready for good news, but I'll listen to the song.
Oh, and just put a saxophone in there somewhere too.
Dan Michaels is not doing anything. Let's get him in for a couple of minutes.
This could have been background music on Miami Vice right here.
Actually, this is Doug Webb, not Dan Michaels. I stand corrected.
That guitar sound, and if you listen to John Knox's drums, he's a little behind the beat and then rushes into it. Like, I don't know, a drummer would get what I'm saying, but he's behind the beat and then rushes to catch up and just creates that groove. And it's a little, but it's still a little off, but it's not. And yeah, this one seems like it's a little more. I love the bridge at the end. This is another sad song. This seems like it's more about urban crime, like there's sirens and people trying to kind of come get him or something and saying goodbye. And yeah, that's kind of what I gathered from it.
Yeah, same. Yeah. I mean, there may be some deeper meaning to it that I'm not fully aware of, but it kind of goes with the same urban living in the hood vibe.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, another good song. It's probably not my favorite song on the album, but it's just kind of my least favorite and my most favorite are not that far apart on this album. So.
Yeah. It's not definitely not my least favorite, but it is. Yeah, it's not quite as strong. It's not as dynamic, but man, so
I think that
good.
may be it.
It's just not as dynamic, and it doesn't have to be, but it's really cool. All right, now getting into Inner City Blues, which is a Marvin Gaye cover, and it's so good.
Rockets, moonshot, spend it on
Okay, so most people, when they do a cover of Marvin Gaye, they do What's Going On. They do, Heard It on the Grapevine. They do lots of other songs. This is a little bit more, it was kind of a hit, but it's a little more of a deep cut. But this is a great example of Marvin Gaye's later, like the second half of his career. So I'm going to get a little bit into Marvin Gaye. So basically, in the beginning, Marvin Gaye, he was always an amazing singer, but in the beginning, other people wrote songs. It was Motown. They wrote songs. He would perform them. He would do duets, Heard It on the Grapevine. All that stuff was the beginning. And then in the 70s, he started writing his own material. And he did something very similar to what James Brown would do. Is he would come up with a beat. He'd come up with a sound. He'd come up with a rhythm, and then he would kind of riff over it, right? And write a song that way. And the reason why this is an amazing cover to do on this album is because it sounds like that's how Gene Eugene wrote this album. It sounds like how Gene Eugene wrote this album is, here's a cool groove, and I'm going to write over it. I'm just going to write over it. I'm going to write something over this groove. And just some amazing material kind of pops out. I think it was a little more intentional. It sounds to me like the songwriting is a little more intentional on Dig, but that's why this song is, and this song fits the theme of the album, which is sort of that inner city, urban plight world, like you talked about with that, through that quote, that Gene Eugene lived in, and he's trying to sort of expose to the world, because that's part of where he came from and what he knows. And you're right, especially suburban white America that was really into Christian music, most of them had no clue what was going on. I didn't until later on in my life, when I went to college downtown and, started doing some living outside of my realm that I grew up in, so it's cool.
Well, like a year after this album came out is when I moved to Atlanta, started going to school in downtown Atlanta, saw a dude getting beat up with a brick one night when I was changing classes. That didn't happen where I grew up.
Nope. No.
Right. And the thing is, you make assumptions too about a lot of people who, if you go to the Lifeway Christian store or XYZ Christian store, you walk in, you're looking at you just make an assumption that this band, they're squeaky clean Christian band, So this album is probably, I don't know how many people bought this album because they thought the cover was cool when they saw it in the Christian bookstore, but they probably, when they got it and started listening to it, they're probably like, this is a little heavier than I was expecting.
If they got it at all, like if they even listened beyond just, it doesn't sound like what I'm used to. So
yeah. And I, to your point, like this song fits. It just dovetails right in with the rest of this album. Like it goes right with everything else. But then
it fits right in. Yeah.
And he wears his influences on his sleeve, but because if you go back to 10 songs, he did a Bill Withers tune, Sunshine. So he's very, very Bill Withers, very Marvin Gaye, and which is cool because he absolutely nailed both of those songs.
Yeah.
I say he, the band, but
Yeah, for sure.
But good stuff.
All right. So kudos for, just if you can't tell, if you're going to do a Marvin Gaye song, for me, you better nail it. And they did. Like, don't crucify a Marvin Gaye song. And they didn't. All right. So the next one is Dance Around in Circles. And boy, I've got a couple things to talk about with this one. But cool little song.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody listen to me and I will hear you. Shaded by the same umbrella. Smile about the way that we do. I can see you around the world. Yeah. Let's dance around in circles. Every boy and every girl. The hands in the middle. Let's dance around in circles. Everyone.
Okay, on the surface, it sounds like just a basic dance song.
Mm-hmm.
But how much different does this song hit me than the shout dancing song that we did just last episode? Like to me, it's like night and day. Like it felt totally forced on the shout album. To me, this doesn't feel forced at all. This feels totally natural. We're just going to have fun with this song. And but the lyrics aren't cliche, although they kind of have a couple cliches in there, right? Every boy and every girl. But it just works. I don't know. To me, when I was listening to it, I was like, why do I like this one so much better than the shout one that we just went over? And I just kind of, I didn't diss it, but I was like, it seems forced and empty. This one seems like, okay, we're having fun, but there's still a little bit more substance to it to me, personally.
Well, yeah, and that leads me to a point I wanted to make, which is we could not have chosen probably two different
right
bands' albums on the cliche scale than Shout, It Won't Be Long, and Homeboys by Adam Again. Yeah, and I love them both for different reasons, obviously.
Me too.
But yeah, and I think that this, and especially having seen them live a few times, it's like this, like, it's almost like this fits into their live situation, because let me just tell you, there is a lot of dancing at Adam Again shows, or there was a lot of dancing. I mean, like the band, especially Riki, then the crowd. It's just like if you allow yourself to just be taken in by it,
yes,
the whole show was just a dance fest. I mean, granted, the heavy themes, all the stuff, but the groove was just, it's like being at like an EDM show or something now, where it's like the whole crowd is, it's like, so this song just sort of like fits that emotion.
Yeah. And let me just say, I know I'm white, but I don't know that I don't know that I've ever gone to a hair metal show and wanted to dance.
Mm-mm.
So for Shout, again, like I'm just trying to think through and process why this seems way more legit to me, but I did want to dance at the Adam Again show. Like I wanted to dance, and their music makes me want to bebop around, and it's got such groove to it. And again, I get it. It is what it is, and people did what they did because it was the 80s. But yeah, I dig it. Like I said, I was trying to process through the other day as I was listening to this. I was like, why do I love this so much? And I gave Shout such a hard time. But yeah, so cool.
Because this feels genuine and natural.
Yes, absolutely.
Which there's a lot to be said for being genuine.
Yeah.
I'll just leave it there.
Yeah. All right. This Band Is Our House. Love this song.
Mm-hmm. So to my earlier point, it's
essentially the same groove and the same bass line, but then he makes it more dynamic when he gets to the chorus, right? It's the same groove. It's the same. It's essentially the same bass line, except he mixes it up a little bit. But that's why I say like this album was really heavily influenced by Marvin Gaye. That second half of Marvin Gaye's career, where he would do stuff like that and just come up with a great groove and then mess around with it and then make it dynamic with adding the guitar, adding some vocals, adding some different things. And I love that song. And of course, this song is a celebration of how cool it is to be in a band and how cool it is to have a group of people. And it fits to some degree, the inner city motif, because music was kind of an escape. Music is kind of like, okay, I fit here. Okay, this is a place I can find some happiness and joy. And yeah, I dig it.
Well, and somebody can correct me if I'm wrong on this, but I feel like for Gene, the band was his life. Music was his life, because I think that pretty sure his studio was his house. So like,
I think you're right.
Like there was music all the time. He owned a record label. He owned a studio. He produced bands. He wrote lots of songs. He was in a band. It's like, and so for him, especially, and I'm sure for Riki, maybe Riki got tired of that life. I don't know. But for him, the band was almost literally a physical house, because that's where he lived.
Oh, sure.
And that's where he died. He died in his studio.
Yeah.
And so, there's a lot to that, but it's like, that song is, it's good.
It's amazing. And it's got another cool bridge. Again, not a pop sort of bridge, but kind of his own sort of songwriting style. Yeah. And a number of these songs, we're only kind of playing the beginning, but a number of these songs have kind of jam parts out. Mm-hmm. And Eugene was an amazing musician himself, so you can kind of see like, we just jam. We're just going to jam it out at the end. And so, yeah.
Well, and this song also has one of my favorite lyrics of all time. Johnny Knox on the hype kick drum, laying the groove so thick.
Yes, yes.
Every time I hear John Knox, or hear that name, that lyric goes through my mind.
Yes. All right. 3 more songs. Save Me.
And you go through this world, it's a world of death, it's a world of hell, it's a world of punishment, it's a world of happiness, it's a world of joy, and you go through all of it.
Saxophone again. Yeah, it's a cool song. I think it sounds amazing, and all the sounds are just great. I like the lyrics. It doesn't really go anywhere. I don't know that. Obviously, he didn't want it to go anywhere. That's just where it goes, and so it's not one of my favorites. But I mean, it's not a skip song. It's cool.
No, I mean, it's easy. Well, easy is relative. I won't say easy, but I think it's easier to cram a bunch of sound together and make a listenable song. To me, it's like being able to slow things down to the point where it's just you playing the keys, and you can tell it's a little bit, it's a little bit funky, a little bit, I'll say jazzy, and in light of you're probably not going 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, so but there's being stripped down to that level with just your voice and an organ and being able to do that well takes a lot of talent. So I feel like
Absolutely.
This is one of those where it's not that he was trying to show off, but it's a little bit of a show off song about how good he is.
Yeah. Well, and to use your term, this is a little bit of a palate cleanser. This is a little bit of we've been funky for a few songs and we've been fun for a few songs. Now we're going to get a little bit more serious and slow and that. And so, cause we're going to kind of end the album here soon. So yeah, it's some of it's about the flow of an album, which again, people don't really do as much anymore. But back then you listen to the whole tape, you listen to the whole record, you listen to the whole CD, like you listen to the whole thing. And so, yeah, so it was good. All right. Occam's razor, which if you don't know, Occam's razor is the idea that the simplest explanation is generally the best explanation.
Just cut away all the extra.
So
I'll paint you in a corner, in a room where the light is on. You will see love stands to reason. You can feel it inside. I think you've known it all along. I will cut you between truth and lie. And I will get through with Occam's razor. Cut your soul from the heart of darkness. I will.
yeah,
Great song.
it's a cool little song. It's not one of my top just because just hook wise, it doesn't really go as where it should go in my opinion. Like it's good, but it's not one of the best sort of like it doesn't really go anywhere again. It's not quite as dynamic, but I like the lyrics a lot. I love the groove. I love the harmonica solo and
By
again,
Daryl Mansfield.
Daryl Mansfield. Come on, man.
Man, he's virtuoso. But yeah, it's okay if you're wrong. I don't mind. No, I love that because it's just kind of a nasty rock groove. Like it's just like the
Oh yeah, I love
drums,
the groove.
the down.
Oh, I love that. I love it.
Yeah, it's I love it too.
And you
I
can
think it's a
see
great
that
song.
as like a precursor to stuff on Dig too, like that sort of riff, that sort of funky guitar rock riff. I mean, you kind of see that as a precursor to a lot of the just over the top stuff that was like that on Dig. But no, I like the message of it, and I didn't know that Taylor wrote the lyrics, but it totally makes sense now. But
Taylor Swift?
Yes. 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 It was a country song first. This is a cover of a country song. No. Yeah. So no,
I don't think so.
Good tune. All right. Last one. No Regrets, which is another sad one.
Oddly enough, it's about regrets.
About his mom.
Mm-hmm.
Think about you often, but I don't know what to do. 'Cause I don't have the courage, or I don't have the strength to make it up to you. It's a solitary pardon, lady, born an actor, but what a foolish line. I am so fond of saying I've no regrets, but if I could do anything again, anything at all, I would never let time take you so far away.
So sad. Oh my gosh.
It's again, back to that. The reason why I would put, although not completely, Adam again to that more alternative genre is because a lot of the lyrics were that angsty, tortured sort of stuff, especially on Dig and some of the songs on this album. And so that's why I would still put them in that sort of category. But this is more of a singer-songwriter kind of tune. And man, it's such an interesting flow from the verse to kind of it doesn't have like a distinct, it does, but not as distinct as maybe a more pop sort of album would. Distinct pre-chorus to chorus, but it kind of does, but it just flows fairly conversationally, but it still has a great melody. Yeah, I have a lot of respect for this song as a songwriter. I just have a lot of respect for it, and of course, it's sad, super sad, but really cool.
Oh my gosh, yeah, it was. There's a lot. It's a very sad. It's interesting. It's an interesting album ender, but
right.
And really, there may be more of a story if it's like fully tied into the whole inner city thing, or if it's I'm sure there's some kind of way that it because I'm obviously, maybe not obviously, but I assume that she was there with him growing up.
Yeah.
But there was maybe some kind of rift or something, and it's funny because I think it's like I get so fond of saying I have no regrets, but if I could do anything,
right? It's so good.
It's kind of like saying,
it's so good. I'm
telling people,
right?
I have no regrets, but really I do.
But really, I'm full of crap. Really, I'm full of crap, and I do. But yeah, I think it fits thematically because he's recalling his life growing up. The Homeboys and expressing the young man that died. And I mean, he's recalling a lot of that stuff. And that was obviously his mother was a big part of that, as it would for anybody. And he sounds like he has kind of a complicated relationship with his mom for whatever reason. And I think a lot of people can relate to that. And again, it's not the simple cookie cutter Christian sort of expression of things, but very, very well done. Very well written. Really, I'm very, like I said, impressed with the songwriting as I am with a lot of what he does. So it's great.
Yeah, no, again, I'll go back to that sort of the thought process that this album to me gets overshadowed by Dig, I think a little bit.
Absolutely.
but to me, beginning to end, is fantastic. It's so good. So if you're unfamiliar with this one, we played snippets of each song. Go back, stream it. If you can find the CD or cassette or record somewhere that you can get it, because it's a good one.
It's totally worth it. And like Steve said, listen to it on headphones, on a good pair of headphones. Something that's going to really help you get a lot of the sounds, a lot of the production. I think this album, again, listening through as I have over the last couple of days, this album also really highlighted when Eugene's production took another step, like a total, like, boom, like, oh, now this is, and so now you see why he produced so many great albums and other artists over the years, through the early 90s, because man, he knew how to get good sounds and how to record well. And like you said, he probably could also just do it in his house. Just go over to Gene's house and record an album. But yeah, just a total, just good in every way. And I agree.
Yeah.
I think Dig overshadows it, but I think that's why when we were talking on text, that's why I was like, well, maybe we should go back and do a second album, because we're kind of getting into that realm of, we can go back and do some second albums like the 77s. And I was like, Homeboys would be the one for Adam again for me, because to me, it's right there.
Yeah. I mean, they had other good ones, but to me, Homeboys and Dig are the top of the heap, in my opinion.
Well,
so.
that was their, and to me, that was their peak. And of course, Eugene did great things on the Lost Dogs and some other stuff too, but this was it.
Well, that's 2024, everybody.
2024, baby.
Hope you enjoyed it. Hope everybody out there has a very Merry Christmas and a very Happy New Year. And we will be back in the new year with some new episodes, maybe some interviews, hopefully, and some new fun stuff. So definitely keep us. If you haven't subscribed, go ahead and subscribe to us. We're on YouTube as well. I've been trying to post the episodes. They don't get posted as frequently as they do go into the podcast feed, because I'm still working on the 77s episode. I'm almost there. It'll probably be done today. But yeah, so just subscribe to us wherever you get your podcasts, like our Facebook page or Instagram page, all that stuff, and give us 5 stars, and we will love you forever.
Like Spike did. Be like Spike.
Yes, absolutely. We like Spike. I'm going to get little pins made, little buttons with that. I like Spike.
All right, guys. God bless.
God bless. Merry Christmas.